Hello class 10. Now we'll resume our study of photosynthesis today from process of photosynthesis. You know, mesophyll cells are a very important part of the leaf, and this is the principal part of the leaf where photosynthesis occurs. Now during daytime, when the sunlight falls on the leaf, light energy is trapped by the chlorophyll. And where is it located? In the upper layers of the mesophyll tissue, especially in the palisade mesophyll tissues or palisade cells. This energy is utilized in the chemical processes which is involved in the photosynthesis process. Now, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere enters the leaf by diffusion down a concentration gradient through the stomata. This thing we have learnt last day also, the role of stomata in photosynthesis. Water from the soil is taken up by the roots, sent up through the stem and finally to the leaves where it is distributed in the mesophyll tissue. Now, these two are the main raw materials which are required. The overall chemical equation you have to remember. We all know, I hope, 6CO2 plus 12H2O with the help of light energy and chlorophyll gives C6H12O6, that is our glucose, 6H2O and 6O2 which is evaporating out or diffusing out. The glucose molecule is a simple sugar readily soluble in water. The 6 molecules of water liberated at the end of the process are those that are reformed and not out of the original ones. Okay. Now, there are two main phases of photosynthesis. One is the light dependent phase, another is the light independent phase. That means light dependent means without light it cannot happen, and light independent means we also call it as dark phase, but actually it means whether the light is present or not, it is independent of that. Now, light dependent phase has got another name, photochemical phase, also known as Hill's reaction, because Hill was the scientist who discovered it. Okay. In this reaction, what happens? Definitely by the name we can understand it is initiated by light, and the phase is called the photochemical phase. It takes place in thylakoids. Very important point, class 10 for your boards. Where is the site of light reaction? You have to remember thylakoids. You can also write grana. Marks will not be cut in your ICC, but if you write thylakoids, it will be more specific answer. Clear? Now, there are two main steps in this photochemical phase that you have to remember. One is activation of chlorophyll. The chlorophyll on exposure to light energy becomes activated by absorbing photons. Photons, are the small energy packets which are coming from the sunlight. Next is splitting of water. The absorbed energy is used in splitting the water molecule into its two components, that is hydrogen and oxygen. And also it releases electrons. Now you have to always give this equation along with this explanation, that is 2H2O with the help of energy of 4 photons. They are giving out 4H plus 4E minus plus oxygen. That is the oxygen molecule. That means it's not a nascent oxygen and it is not an atomic oxygen. Secondly, you can see they are giving out 4 protons or H plus ions and 4 electrons. Clear? This reaction is known as photolysis. Why? Because photo means light and lysis means breaking down. It is like breaking down the water molecule with the help of light. That is why it is also known as photolysis of water. You may get this question in your ICSE. So please be careful when you get this question. You have to explain these two steps along with the equation, and then only you can explain what is photolysis. I hope it's clear. I'm giving up, the all round uh, brief, suggestions and advices for your ICSE board exams. Okay, please note it down. Now, this part is also very important. The end result of the products of photolysis. The hydrogen ions are picked up by a compound known as NADP, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. This full form may come in your short questions or in your rather multiple type questions. So for those questions you have to remember the full form. And what it is forming, NADP? Forming NADPH, that means reduced form of the NADP. Clear? What is the equation? NADP plus electron plus H plus, with the help of an enzyme it is giving NADPH. Right? The oxygen component is given out as molecular oxygen. 2O is given out as O2. The electrons are used in converting ADP, adenosine diphosphate, into energy-rich compound ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate, by adding one phosphate group PI. PI is actually inorganic phosphate. We will always write PI. ADP plus phosphate, rather inorganic phosphate, is giving ATP. So if you get a question, what is phosphorylation or what is photophosphorylation, then you need to give the third point as explanation, the equation of ADP plus PI giving ATP. This is known as phosphorylation because phosphorylation means addition of the phosphate group. And because this energy which is used in this process comes from the photons, the packets of light energy, so we are terming this phenomenon as photophosphorylation. I hope it is very clear to you, class 10. If you have any problem, you can ask me through your comment box. Clear? Now for your dark phase or light independent phase, also called as biosynthetic phase, this phase is not there in your syllabus, so you need not to go to detailed discussion for this. You just know that the glucose is actually formed in this phase, okay, and the main parts have already occurred in your light phase. Light independent phase is the dark reaction, and you have to know only the site. You can get the question, site of light independent phase, that is your stroma of the chloroplast. We all know the structure of chloroplast. We have done that in the last class. That you have to remember. Other than that, you have to remember that the glucose is formed in this reaction, in this phase. Okay? And you know that glucose in the future, in the plant, it is stored in the form of a more complex and complicated carbohydrate, that is starch, with the process known as polymerization. Polymers, that means several glucose molecules are transformed to produce one molecule of starch, and this process is called polymerization. That means poly means more than two. So when number of glucose molecules are attaching themselves with each other and forming a long chain of molecules, then we are calling that particular phenomenon as polymerization. Clear? Now, adaptations in leaf for photosynthesis. There are many adaptations in leaf which will help in photosynthesis process. One is large surface area, because as much as area is there, that much it is exposed to the light energy, and for maximum light absorption it needs large surface area. Leaf arrangement at right angles to the light source to obtain maximum light. So if the leaves are at right angles to each other, it will be easier for them to absorb light energy. Numerous stomata that allows rapid exchange of gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide. The thinness of leaves. Now what is this? This reduces the distance between cells, facilitating rapid transport. So as much leaves are thin, that much, it facilitates the process because it reduces the distance between the adjacent cells. Chloroplasts are concentrated in the upper layers of the leaf to obtain light energy quickly. So it is less at the lower surface, more at the upper surface. Extensive vein system for rapid transport to and from the mesophyll cells. Clear? Now what are the end products of the photosynthesis? Glucose, water and oxygen. Now glucose, they are simply utilized by the cells or is stored in the form of insoluble starch, as I have said you just now. And it is also used in synthesizing fats, proteins which are required in the plant body. Water that is produced, they are reutilized for the continuation of photosynthesis and also, for various metabolic activities inside the body of a living organism. Plant is a living organism. It needs a lot of metabolic activities to undergo. So definitely it needs water for that. And oxygen, which is a very, very important byproduct of this process, that is used, mostly that is used for the respiration of the leaf cells. Okay, and the major portion of it is not required. It diffuses out in the atmosphere and that is being utilized by us. We get the oxygen from plants. So where we get it? Where do we get it? We get it from the photosynthesis process. So please make it clear that oxygen is used for respiration in plants and the other part is used for the respiration in living organisms or rather animals. Okay. Now the factors that are affecting photosynthesis, there are 4 external and 3 internal factors. Now external factors: light intensity, carbon dioxide concentration, temperature and water content. Now let us see how light intensity and carbon dioxide concentration are related to each other. One would easily think that the rate of photosynthesis will increase with light intensity. To some extent it is true because we all know that light is the main factor. So we all will hope that if the light is increasing, that means the rate of photosynthesis is increasing. To some extent it is true, but photosynthesis increases with the light intensity up to a certain limit only, and then it gets stabilized at the point. But if at this point the carbon dioxide concentration is increased, the photosynthesis also increases further and again gets stabilized at a point. Now let us see. The rate of photosynthesis increases with the increase in the intensity of light, provided the CO2 concentration also increases. Similarly, the rate of photosynthesis increases with the increase in the concentration of CO2, provided there is an increase in the intensity of light. Thus, both light and concentration of CO2 are limiting factors for each other for the extent of photosynthesis. And this has been given by Blackman, who was a scientist. So it's also known as Blackman's theory or Blackman's reaction. Okay, because here he had correlated the two factors which are acting as a limiting factor for each other for the photosynthesis rate. Let us see this diagram, this graph. Here we can see with the increasing light intensity in the figure A, you just please concentrate in the figure A. Increasing light intensity, with that rate of photosynthesis is also increasing up to S dash. But when after that it is increasing, it is stabilizing the rate of photosynthesis after 0.02% concentration of CO2. And here in the number B, we can see that up to S dash we are getting the same result. But after that, in the S double dash, here CO2 concentration increased to 0.05%. We are increasing the CO2 concentration. Then what's happening? Highest rate of photosynthesis reached at 0.05% concentration of CO2. After that, it is restabilizing itself. Clear? So both the light intensity and the CO2 concentration are limiting factors to each other, and correlation, they have a strong correlation with each other. I hope it's clear. And this diagram is very important, students, so please go through this graph, okay, for explaining this answer. Next is temperature. With the rise in temperature, the rate of photosynthesis rises. This rise occurs up to an optimum temperature of 35 degrees centigrade, after which the rate falls and stops above 40 degrees centigrade. Now, why this happens? At this uppermost limit, the enzymes are destroyed. A rise of 10 degrees centigrade up to the optimum temperature, that is 35 degrees centigrade, which is the optimum temperature, mind it, doubles the rate of photosynthesis. That means up to 35, if you are rising 10, 10, 10 like this, then it is doubling the rate of photosynthesis. But after that, it will suddenly fall its rate. The rate will fall after that, because for the photosynthesis, because there are many enzymes involved, and enzymes are protein in nature, and they always require a proper amount of temperature. Otherwise, protein has got a characteristic that at a very high temperature it will be disintegrated, it will be denatured. So after 40 degrees centigrade, the enzymes are getting denatured, and that is why this enzymes cannot work and the rate will fall. Clear? Water content. The scarcity of water due to reduced absorption from the soil or due to an excessive loss through transpiration reduces the rate of photosynthesis by decreasing the diffusive capacity due to the closure of stomata. Only 1% of water absorbed by the root is utilized in photosynthesis. So you can understand that we even cannot imagine that how less amount of water is needed for this process. Now, the three main factors affecting the rate of photosynthesis are light intensity, amount of CO2, and temperature. More light intensity and more CO2, suitable temperature lead to maximum photosynthesis, but not indefinitely. Whichever of these three factors is relatively in short supply determines the rate of photosynthesis. More light intensity, enough CO2 but lower temperature, that means less photosynthesis. More light intensity, less CO2, suitable temperature, less photosynthesis. Less light intensity, enough CO2, suitable temperature, less photosynthesis. The above generalizations are termed Blackman's principles of limiting factors, in which we have already seen light intensity and CO2 are playing the biggest role. Clear? Now, internal factors, one is the chlorophyll, you know that, protoplasm, and structure of leaf. So these three you must remember that any nutritional deficiency that cause the loss of chlorophyll can drop the rate of photosynthesis. Dehydration of protoplasm can reduce the rate of photosynthesis. Dehydration of protoplasm means if water is coming out more by exosmosis in any ways. And structure of leaf means the thickness of cuticle, distribution of stomata, and the size of the leaf, the amount of light the leaf is getting, the amount of CO2 entering inside the leaf. Everything is related with the structure of the leaf. So that can also affect the rate of photosynthesis. Clear? Now students, today up to this. Next day it will be the third class for photosynthesis chapter, because it's a big chapter and it needs a lot of explanation. So next day I will go through all the experiments based on this phenomenon. There are many experiments which you must remember, must understand, and you will get also many questions from the experimental parts. So be sure you attend the next class also. And till now, uh, I hope the chapter is clear to you. If you have any problem, it's my earnest request. You may come up in the comment box with any of your problems, with any of your interrogations. I'll clear it up. Thank you.